Straw Hut Media.
This is Eugene Garcia-Cross, and if you don't like laughing, then don't be alone with Jake Hogan.
Don't be alone with Jake Hogan.
Hi, welcome to Don't Be Alone with Jake Hogan. I am Jake Hogan, filling in for the usual host, which is Jake Hogan. I am thrilled that you're here. The show is about me talking about my problems with interesting people, and it's about growing closer with you, because I don't want you to be alone, except with me, Jake Hogan. So if you can communicate with me, that'd be great. And I can communicate with you, that'd be great. So write in to me at Don't Be Alone with Jake Hogan. The address is dbawjk@gmail.com. dbawjk@gmail.com. And I'm interested in your suggestions, your comments, your criticisms, and especially your questions that you'd like me to ask my guests. Any big life questions that you're having, if you want to have some half-assed celebrity answer them, then they'll be here for you. That's my promise to you. Today, I have a great guest. His name is Eugene Garcia-Cross. He's a writer I worked with on a show a while back, and he's a really funny and talented writer. He's diverse. Thank God I got a diverse guy on the show, because I was getting emails and comments. The thing about Eugene, or Baby Gene as we called him, is he's adorable and he loves life and he's happy all the time. He's giggly and happy and upbeat. I'm a pretty upbeat, happy guy, but it's like, by comparison, I seem like really sad and depressed and droopy. And I want to know what his secret is. What keeps him high on life all the time? Even when the chips are down, he's upbeat. And I love that about him, and I'd like to be more like that. So I just wanted to talk about optimism, and what are the secrets to optimism? And is it just the will to be happy? Is it just decision? I'm going to make myself happy? Or is it something more? Is it something you're born with and you just lift yourself up? I don't know. We'll find out. Stay tuned, and we'll be right back with Eugene Garcia-Cross.
Don't be alone with Jake Hogan.
We're good?
All right.
Okay.
Do I just right into here?
Yeah, do you know how microphones work?
I've never used one of these.
Doesn't have to be so close to your face.
So it's not actually a prop. This actually has value.
Yeah,
Okay.
It takes the sound of your voice and turns it into electrons, and it goes through those wires.
Yeah. I hate the sound of my voice.
Yes.
It's the answering machines or this. So I'm so proud and honored to be here. But I'll put that as a disclaimer. I just don't like.
Well, honestly, now listening to it, I hate the sound of your voice too.
See,
could you please go?
This already.
Yeah, this is a terrible idea.
I know.
Oh my God.
Yes.
I will introduce you to the audience. This is Eugene Garcia-Cross. I'm gonna, even though your book says Eugene Cross.
I know.
What happened to the Garcia?
They left off the hyphenated Puerto Rican aspect of my name.
I know.
Before
I need the diversity on my show.
Dude, trust me, it's here.
Yeah, okay.
It's here.
Okay, so this is author Eugene Garcia-Cross, who just wrote a new book of short stories called Miss Me Forever. Yeah. Right?
Yeah. Okay. Well, this one's a novel, but the other one was short stories. But this
I want that.
Get rid of
I
it.
want. So this is the book of short stories.
Yes.
And this is Fires of Our Choosing.
Yes.
By Eugene Cross again, not Garcia-Cross. What the fuck is that about?
I know.
What made you write a novel?
Oh my God. Short stories. I don't know. Short stories are hard, right? Like we're talking sitcoms, like writing a sitcom, writing a successful.
So a novel is easier than a short story?
You know that saying, like I didn't have time to write a short letter, so I wrote a long one.
Right.
Like, just like getting everything condensed to where, nothing is wasted on the page. I think maybe I've aged out of having the sort of intelligence for that. And so the novel gave me a little bit more room to ramble. But it came out of some work I did with refugees back in Pennsylvania from Bhutan and Nepal, and kind of was inspired by their stories. And so this came about.
But is it their story, or is it something in there that's also your story?
It's a little bit of both. It's definitely about, sort of finding your home. It follows a refugee from Bhutan named Tulsi who moves to the States when he's, I think, 16, and he's separated from the only family he's ever really known, which is his sister. And it follows him over about 7 years as he's trying to find her, living with his grandfather in Pennsylvania, where I'm from, and sort of trying to find your place in the world, which hopefully is universal.
Right. Okay. Well, let me just read a little bit from the book, because I haven't read this book before. I just want to This is a work of fiction. Characters and names appearing in this work are a product of the author's imagination. Any similarity to real persons, living or dead, is coincidental and not intended by the author. This is great.
This is really good stuff.
This is a great.
You should
It's
hear.
unbelievable.
It's wait till you get to the Library of Congress.
Clear, concise.
It's just
fantastic.
it's
I'm impressed.
what I do. Well, if you like that, wait till you get to the
Oh my
acknowledgement
God.
section.
That's fantastic.
That's what I do.
No, I mean, I would never. Obviously, I'm going to read it and or at least have it read to me by my assistants.
Please do that.
'cause
Please do that.
I don't have the time to read things myself.
I understand. There's no Audible. That's where I fall in the publishing. There's no audiobook, so it's.
I can just have people
Have an
read it.
assistant.
Just real people read it. Yeah, it's fine. It's fine.
The advantage.
But that's fantastic. I've sat down to try and write novels, but it's not something I'm passionate about in terms of novel writing. That's not. I've read things that I loved, and I love certain books, but it's not been my passion.
I get it.
Like movies and
Yeah.
TV were always my passion. And so I think, well, what am I writing a book for?
Yeah.
I should write this other thing. But now that it's just hard to get anything done, being in charge of your own thing, and just like a book that's just mine from beginning to end seems a little bit more appealing.
Yeah. I mean, there's advantages. It's funny, right? Because I started with fiction, I started with short stories, and then I started working on the novel, and I was always writing, and it's just lonely. And I mean, like, that's kind of, we've talked about like just being happy to be around other people. Like for me, when I found out that TV was a writer's room, I mean, I could not imagine working on something with other people. And when you're, you have the script up on the wall and you're just bouncing jokes off each other and throwing out pitches and you're not in a room by yourself or in a corral in the library where you're sort of locked away with no interaction with anybody else. It's the greatest switch in the world. That's why, I mean, people talk about the hours of the writer's room. Sometimes it's 2 a.m. and like, I'm tired, but I'm like, this is the greatest. I'm with 10 of the funniest people in the world.
It's funny. And when you have, if you feel like you have permission to be funny, it's great. Sometimes you're working for people who don't seem to want to be having a lot of fun. And so you got to shut up and let them do their whining. But if you're in a room of people who really like to have a good time, it can be a good time. It can be a real party. And
intimidating, right? I mean, because you're like, I get that too, because when I started out, I was like, this is, some of these writers were, the credits you're so sort of floored by, and you're like, I can't believe I'm pitching jokes at the same table as somebody who, wrote for The Simpsons or wrote for Seinfeld or wrote for Friends. And so like,
but you can find the shitty credits too.
Like,
I'm in the same room as a guy who worked on a show called Sibs.
Exactly.
It's a terrible show.
Exactly. Those are the ones I'm most flabbergasted by.
So terrible. Well, which leads me to my topic today, because I brought you here. This show is about me exploring my problems with interesting and clever people. Who you are one of them, and so I find that. Sometimes, I'm generally speaking an optimistic, happy, up person. But there are times when it's dark and I'm sad and I should be more up and I'm not up, and it's a happy occasion and I'm not a happy occasion. And we're about to hit a series of holiday parties and stuff, and you got to be up and happy.
Always.
You seem like you are up and happy 99.99999% of the time. Is that true?
I hear this sometimes, and I want to be honest. I feel like I can be up and happy, and then there are times I just go home and just lock myself in the bathroom so I can sob.
Right. Okay.
But like much like everybody.
I've never seen you in a down spot. How do you do? How is it a show? Is it a mask? Are you pretending, or is it just you're finding the joy inside life and squeezing it out?
I mean, the easy answer is meth, right?
Okay,
I mean, that's what you want to say, but it's not. No. It's. I mean, it could be
because then I can get the meth, right?
I mean,
whereas that is the easy answer.
It's a lot,
honestly.
right? This is a lot more universal for everybody. No, I mean, I was thinking about this because we were talking about it and we had exchanged emails. I love people. I think that I have spent, enough time alone, either working on fiction or, everybody has traumas and stuff from their childhood, or, I lost my dad young and all kinds of stuff happened. But I think like being around other people, my father was like that. He loved talking to people, and he used to tell me like, talk to everybody because you can learn something from everybody. Right. And so I don't know that I'm always like this at home. And which maybe isn't the best test.
Right.
Maybe for my wife and 3 kids, maybe that's not.
Well, would your wife say, oh, Gene is a happy guy?
I think she would say I'm a happy guy. I think she would say I would say this, that she bears the brunt of my neuroses, my anxieties, and my fears, of which there are many.
That's fair.
Yeah.
No?
So it's writing, right? TV. We've been through a hell of a couple of years here, right? With the strike, and it's not an easy gig anyway. And I switched to TV later. I was a 35-year-old PA on an ABC sitcom. I spent 10 years as an English professor and writing. And so it was a late career change, and it was kind of risky. And it was sort of like the last year or 2 I could have done it. And so like I'll go through those periods where you don't work 7 or 8 months and you're just floored, right? Because you're not bringing in an income, you're not you moved your wife and kids from, we were living in New York, we're out in LA, I don't know anybody. And I'll do that thing where I just go to her like, it's gonna be okay, right? Just tell me it's gonna be okay. and I'm just, it doesn't really have to be okay.
Right.
I just need to hear you say it.
But wow, she has to be the one to say it's
she has to be the one. Yeah,
that's your job.
Exactly,
that's
right?
That's your job.
No,
oh my
tough.
God.
Yeah, like that. So that I think, kind of like when you're alone and the demons get to you, like this idea that like I'm a failure, I'm not going to achieve what I would have hoped to. I found a career I love, but I'm not going to get the opportunity to execute it because I'm just not good enough, or there's not enough opportunity. Right. And I think all of that stuff, when it kind of wells up, you go to a dark place. And I think that the opposite is true. Like you get to sit in a room here and talk and joke and have fun, or you're in the writer's room and it's like all that doubt, all that uncertainty, all that fear has paid off in 20 weeks of pre-production, where you're spitballing and you're there for those late nights and you're trying to make up this imaginary world to bring a little bit of joy to whoever out there might need it. And you're following in this great lineage too, right? Like I get out here and grew up on Cheers and Seinfeld and Friends and Mad About You and Two and a Half Men and all these shows. And then you realize that, maybe I'm not working exactly in that, but I'm following in those footsteps in some way.
Right, but I mean, those things, TV changes, TV grows. People who are my son's age, 20 years old, do not know half those shows that you're talking about. Yeah. And then you grew up and probably don't know a bunch of shows that I grew up. Yeah. So that, it's fine. TV is just
cyclical, right?
It's also just candy. It's like people are eating the candy and they're done with it, and then the new candy comes out and they'll have the new candy.
I know, right?
But I find it. Yes, of course, you're going to have your moments of doubt, and you've picked a career that's high pressure and very unstable, and all that stuff. But you seem to handle the pressure pretty well, and you seem to have a lot of joy, take a lot of joy from your family and your kids, and so that
I'm happy with it, And also, like, it's one of those jobs where when I graduated, I finished college, I went to grad school for writing. I ended up back at home in Erie, Pennsylvania, which is where I'm from. I love it. Family's there. I ended up teaching at a branch campus of Penn State Barron. And I got college freshman English. And, your average freshman doesn't want to take freshman English. They're not into it. Rhetoric, rhetoric and composition. And it was cold and dark as it is in Erie in December. And I was teaching an 8 a.m. class Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And the kids 17, 18, they don't want to be there.
Right.
And I remember it was my first time really teaching college English. And somebody had always told me, a good job is when you walk in and you look up at the clock, you're working for a little bit, and you look up at the clock and 3 or 4 hours have passed like that.
Right.
And a tough job is the opposite.
Right.
And I remember I went in with my syllabus, and that was the first day I was going to go over the syllabus, and I was going to meet all the students, and there was about 20 fresh faces in there. And I went through everything that I had planned for this 50-minute lecture, and I looked up, and I think 5 minutes had passed. And I remember like, holy shit, what do I do with this next 45 minutes? Right. And I'll tell you, the truth is, at least in those early stages, you learn how to bullshit.
Sure.
And you learn how to bullshit and fill time. And then later on, obviously, you're hopefully going to fill, those classes and those lectures with substance and things that the kids can use. But at the beginning, I was really bad at it. And then I got out here, and I love teaching, by the way. And I had wonderful experiences and great students. But then I got out to LA, and it was the opposite, right? It was like you get to the writer's room at 10 a.m. and it's 2 a.m. and you've eaten every meal there and you're tired as shit. But you're like, my God, let's go down to set. Let's watch these pros run through these lines. Let's pitch alts. Let's have, somebody comes over and who wrote that joke and they like it. I mean, what's better, right?
Oh, it's great. It's fun to make a show.
Yeah.
It's really fun to make a show. I've learned teaching college now for a little bit. I teach at USC.
Yes.
That I feel like I'm on a race for time because there's too much to do. And especially in these writing courses, sort of like you got to get them on board with, you got to write.
Yeah.
And you got to write. And your next week, you need to deliver stuff.
Yeah.
So let me tell you what your assignment is. And sometimes that takes 3 hours to talk about what that is.
And when they're passionate about it, which, I mean, that's the thing. Those early classes, the gen eds, they have to be in there. But if they're taking TV because they want to be in TV, or they're taking comedy because they love comedy, it's like you see their eyes light up and they're like, and it's not only that, it's like they look at you and they're like, this guy's been there, he's done it. And it's like, for me as a fiction writer, that's what it was. Like when we had a visiting writer come and I was like, oh my God, I can't believe I get to study with this person. Like, it just felt like, they've achieved the dream that I'm so scared to even say out loud.
But then you got there. So how did you did everything they did?
I'm trying.
You wrote your books.
Yeah.
And you've been writing TV shows and movies and stuff.
That's why I'm retiring.
I know.
I'm here to announce.
Exactly.
This is
fantastic.
Yes.
Well, I mean, but it takes a certain amount of guts, gumption, if you will, to do it, to sort of, come out here and do this, and perseverance to be, you were like you say, you were a set PA or something like for 35. You got to take a certain amount of ego death to go like, here I am. Yeah. But you get there. So if you were pleasant enough as a production assistant at that age doing stuff, if you had this sense of humor and this joy, people are going to want to find a way to work with you again and be around you.
I hope so. It's funny. It's a good point. Sometimes I've gone into staffing meetings where it's off, and I know it right off the bat. Like, and I won't name the shows or the runners, but like I know this isn't for everybody. Like, I've been dumped enough times to know, like, this is not, like, I'm so happy to be here. Like, I've gone into staffing interviews where I just, you can't be anybody but yourself.
They want somebody to complain with?
They want sort of that darker, satirical, ironic, sort of like.
They want Robin.
Yeah,
okay.
Exactly. Robin, we're out there. Yes. We love you.
Yes.
But it's a different type of humor. I'm not Stephen Wright. I love those jokes. I'm not, your personality is who you are, and I get it.
Not every personality is right for every room, but I don't know that, it'd be shocking, not shocking, but that somebody's just designing a staff based on the whiniest, bitterest people. Because I understand the showrunner can be whiny, but he doesn't necessarily want to surround himself with whiny people.
Yeah, the round table. I know it's a strange thing, and caveat is I'm an exceptionally angry driver. Okay. So like I'm like this, but that's a place where I let it out.
Thank God.
I mean,
thank God there's a human side to you.
I don't even know what's coming out of my mouth.
Road rage.
Road rage by the 405, and I'm just cursing and just yelling and so that comes out of me too, and I think like it's all a balance, right?
Well, that's the Erie boy.
That is the Erie boy. Yeah. That's the mean streets.
Sure, that gray, cloudy, the lake is fucked, and now I'm gonna go home. Yeah, I get it.
Cleveland was favored because the river was on fire.
Right.
But you're right, that too. Like we call it seasonal affective disorder, where you don't see the sun for months.
Right.
And like that is, it's good if you're trying to breed alcoholics, and it's good if you're trying to breed. I lived in Chicago 3 years. It's bars and it's churches, and I love Chicago, but it's the reason everybody spends every moment of the summer outside. So you get to California, and it's like, oh, this other thing that made me depressed no longer exists.
The light is everything. The light is beautiful. It's great to hear. I mean, honestly, if you're listening to this from a far-flung area and you're not in a beautiful, sunny climate, you're making a huge mistake.
What are you doing with your life?
I don't know.
Exactly.
It is. We're filming this here. It's December, middle of December.
Yes.
I'm wearing shorts. And it's fine.
And I'm sweating in jeans. I don't know why.
I don't know. But you dignified my show with long pants. Thank you.
Today has been an exceptional day. I got the call from you about this. My day started off with I was dropping my 4-year-old off at preschool, and I got a call. I had a dentist appointment at 9. The hygienist called in sick. And I said, this is the kind of day.
It's magic.
It's magic. It's the best call I've ever gotten from a dentist.
You're not being a flake. Your dentist says you don't have to come in here and have me prod your gums.
Exactly.
That's fantastic.
I wasted a week, the week that I always do before the appointment flossing, which I never do any other time. But I said, this is like this, I should, and then I got this call and I said, I should go and buy a lottery ticket because this day, everything that's happening is good.
Well, you may not be the most famous guest I've ever had on the show, but
arguably,
we worked together on a show with Punky Brewster.
Punky Brewster
show, and fun staff all the way around. It was a really fun staff, and you were a joy and a standout, both in your comedy and your writing, but also your demeanor. And I found that that staff was full of, generally speaking, pretty nice people. And I like that. I mean, that's one of the things that if you're going to spend your days and nights working with people, it's nice when they're pleasant and funny.
Yeah.
And that really helps.
That room was, first of all, it was great to meet you. It was great to meet the Armagitas who ran it, Robin Shore, Susie and Sarah. Everybody was fantastic in that room. Everybody.
But
I mean, we got to point out. I wish I had dirt, but I was going to say that show, I had started on a kid's show and I'd been very fortunate. Then I got an offer on an NBC sitcom with Steven Weber, Fran Drescher, Indebted. Had a blast. Then we got canceled and it was right before.
Who ran Indebted?
Dan Levy.
Dan Levy.
Yeah. So, and that was great because it was like, he's the best and a great group of writers there. But it's tough. TV's tough. And so it was right before the pandemic started. I had a friend who was on Indebted with me and she had gone out for the Punky Brewster show and she got the offer, but then she got another offer and took that. And so she passed and I got
room for you.
You made room for me.
That's
and
good.
I said, I will always gladly be second.
Right.
I mean, that's
what was the show that your friend
She went to Brooklyn Nine-Nine for their last season.
All right.
And
a much better choice.
A much better choice.
A much better choice.
Well, you're saying it. Not
if I'm managing your career, I'm saying you get on Brooklyn Nine-Nine.
You get 10% of whatever she made on it. But I felt so lucky, so fortunate to have work right after we'd been canceled.
Yeah.
So jumped over, and then the pandemic happened, right? So we were all on Zoom. Yeah. And it was such like a lovely room and so nice to be there. And I'd grown up with the original, that lovable scamp, Punky. And
I hadn't.
You hadn't?
I did not know
You didn't
Punky
know the
Brewster.
original?
No, I didn't.
No, but I get it. That was, for me, it was part of that was like Facts of Life. That was,
I was too old. I was too old for that.
Yeah.
I knew, I'd heard about Punky Brewster. I'd seen episodes, but it wasn't like, it would have been weird.
It would have been weird.
If I was like a 25-year-old guy, I gotta get home from Punky Brewster. I gotta get home and watch. I can't score some drugs with you. I gotta get home from Punky Brewster.
That might have been an alarm, right?
Yeah,
it's like you had a standing.
Yeah.
But it's and it's one of those things where like you get in the room and like you're doing it anew. We were talking about the Frasier thing. It's almost good in a way that you don't have this connection to it, that you're not trying to recreate something entirely that you had grown up with, which I don't think anybody was trying to do there. But, it was fun. And it was fun. It was so uncertain. We all would Zoom and then the run-throughs, everybody was like, remember like Chernobyl, wearing the... And so I just felt very fortunate and blessed to have
we had
work.
a lot of Chernobyl in that we had a lot of wear masks and stuff. Not that we were afraid that everyone had cancer and dying.
Exactly.
I just want to be clear to the audience.
That's true. It was a different Chernobyl.
Yeah.
But then, and I recall this, I knew I liked you right away because you were funny and everything, but one of the first late nights we had, I think we knew that there was like a half an hour left. And I remember, those boxes on Zoom that everybody's become so familiar with. And I looked and you were my upper left box and you were drinking a Corona. And I said, I like him. I like him a lot.
Right.
And then later on, you would take photos of everybody's backgrounds, and then you would put those as your background, but not say anything until the said person noticed, which was also fun. It was just a fun room.
Yes.
And then I once I realized that we would go through the script with the showrunners were brothers. We'd go through the script with one of them. Then we'd go through the script again with both of them. Right. But I knew that kind of signal at the end of the night, I would go and get a Corona. And I said, Jay, Jay could do it. Then,
absolutely.
And it was nice.
Yeah.
It was a good
And
room.
I was actually doing black tar heroin at the same time.
See, I'm glad I didn't
tie off.
I didn't. Yeah, and I didn't know that.
That's really when it's time to relax.
That's really,
That's when I do it.
Nothing says quitting time like just tying off a vein.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
then you go. So now let me back up a little bit.
Yes.
At what point have you always been cheery, like from the infancy?
No, you know what?
Was it like when your dad died? Like,
Yeah,
did you compensate by being?
I think more so, yeah. Like, I have a sister. We were in the hospital a lot when my dad was younger. He had cancer, lung cancer. And then we did.
By the way.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that.
I have two opportunities at that moment. Either to make a horrible joke or try to be a human. And I chose... Unusually, the human part, and I actually feel good about that choice. I'm sorry.
A, thank you. Yeah. I love you. And B, I would not begrudge you one bit if you
I know you wouldn't.
Because I
could have done it.
I thought you were going to say lung is the coolest of the cancers because it means you smoked.
Right, yeah. So, no, I didn't go there. Yeah. I could have.
But you
it's fine.
Yeah.
But it's like, it is, I'm growing a heart as I get older. Growing a heart. But so you're... You and your sister are spending a lot of time in hospitals.
A lot of time. Cleveland Clinic, we were there all the time. My mom was taking care of him. So then he gets, I don't know. I mean, maybe that's part of it, but he gets so much radiation chemotherapy, it saves his life, right? Because it kills the lung cancer. But so much radiation that 10 years later, he gets esophageal cancer, right? So, and it's sort of that devil's bargain where you're like, well, yeah, but I had 10 more. I would have lost him when I was 13. I lost him when I was 23. And so I was sort of, you can be upset about it, you can be whatever, but I try to think of it in terms of that, like, oh, that's a decade I wouldn't have had him. And I think he was a happy guy. So I think like there's something, I just, and I said it before, but I feel very fortunate to meet people from all walks of life. I feel very fortunate to be where I am. I feel very, very blessed to just stuff that I grew up loving, like meeting people that had a hand in making that, creative people. And also my dad just had that thing where he was like, everybody, you can learn from everybody. Like there's nothing worse than the guy who's like a Trump, right? I know not to go there, but there's nothing worse.
I know. Whoa. Come on.
I crossed a line.
Are you talking about the greatest president of the United States?
Right, that ego.
45?
That ego, right? I don't know how anybody could even... But the idea that there's somebody whose value as a human being, and I'm not... But the idea that there's somebody whose value as a human being is so below you that 5 minutes of your time is not worth it because there's nothing that you can learn from them. And what I've found is that that's not true of anybody I've ever met.
Right.
That anybody, unless they're shut off and they don't want to, or they have some sort of, axe to grind with you. But the idea that 5 minutes or that you have to draw a line because it's a toxic relationship and you need to you need to protect yourself, which it took me a long time to learn too. But I think you can learn from everybody. And so maybe that brings a little joy to life.
Well, let me try and poke holes into your good nature. When you came to Hollywood, have you come to realize that people who you extolled as geniuses and heroes are in fact less than that? And maybe found that there are more charlatans than you thought, and that the idea that the single genius whose mind created such and such is kind of a bullshitty publicist version of life.
Yeah, what I found is that being a genius and being, creatively gifted and blessed, and what did Rush Limbaugh, another very modest man, used to say, "I have talent on loan from God."
Right.
That does not necessarily dictate that person has any sort of touch for humanity or any sort of grace or any sort of good-naturedness, which to me is the greatest failing of all. Ego, boastfulness, nastiness for the sake of who somebody is, unmitigated, just inflated self-worth. Right. There's nothing worse than that. So,
and yet you like Dan Levy.
I mean,
so weird. So I don't know.
I mean, it's true. It's true. It's true. I got to say, there's the two. He always gets mistaken. You see, there's
There's Eugene Levy's son.
Yes,
that's one Dan
Levy,
and then there's another Dan Levy.
Yes.
Levy. So
great guy. I only know the one, so I can't vouch. But
well, let me ask you this about Indebted.
Yes.
So you work very hard on Indebted, try to make it good, and as of now, looking back on it, where do you think it missed?
Oof. Yeah. I mean, wow, that's a great question.
Again, I'm trying to poke holes.
No,
in your
you're poking holes. I mean, it's tough. I think I was very fresh, so I don't know. Building a show, building a world is so hard. I think we maybe, you know, I mean, we have Fran Drescher, who's just this comedic legend, but then it was a family sitcom where we had a lot of other characters, and she wasn't, I mean, she's the lead in a way, but she wasn't necessarily the lead in the way we wrote it. And maybe the expectation was that it would be more in the vein of The Nanny, and it would be more in the vein of her driving every episode story.
So you think the audiences were disappointed it's not Fran driving the story?
Yeah, I think maybe that was, you know, I would take all the blame if I could. I was I was a staff writer, but I would take all the
but I mean, you're creating your own shows. You're trying to do your own thing.
Yeah.
Like you need to take lessons from the things that you've worked on. I felt that tonally, there was a problem with the show with Indebted. That Steven Weber's character and Fran's character were almost like big children. And they weren't really believable. They were trying to be. They were so wacky, supposedly, but also the goofy wacky because they had to be happy. They've lost everything, but somehow they're happy living in their kids' house. It was hard to buy some of that.
No, it's tough, right? Because like he's another guy like Steven Weber. Like I was probably more excited. I mean, Fran, obviously, I'd been a fan of The Nanny, but I'd been a huge Wings fan. Like I thought he was just, and I do think he's just hilarious. And you're right, like a family, you know, who loses all their money and then has to move in with the kids. It's hard because you have to have some levity to it.
The tone somehow was directed or whatever, so that the two of them were a little bit diminished, not lobotomized, but diminished in their humanity. And you're like, well, that's hard to buy. And so like then you know the mom and dad of the show, the husband and wife, you know, were the real people. It was like, okay, well, those other people are pretty great. If they were real too, you might have had more. That's how I would have done.
And that's the thing is like I never realized like how hard it is to make a show. I mean, like, you know, you talk about these shows that like you grow up loving and you're like, that is a 1 in a million thing that like you could have that sort of alchemy between the cast.
Tone. I mean, the idea. Selling the idea. Getting it written. Getting it made. Getting it cast. You're getting it produced. The audience likes it. Getting 6 episodes, enough for people to come watch it. Then getting 13 more more episodes, then enough people watch it to get it renewed for a year. It's like it takes so much to get there. It's so many impossible odds. So I mean,
is it going to happen again on network? Will it happen again on network, or
it'll happen again somewhere? I'm sure. Why not network? I mean, it seems like everything is turning back into network television somehow. Like advertisers are coming to these streamers and stuff. Like, I don't know.
Because that's the thing too, is like you come out here and it's like the changing landscape between the streaming services and everything that's going on with the strike and everything with, I mean, I walked in and it was like packaging and I'm like, I have no idea what you're talking about, packaging. And there's this history to Hollywood that's so complicated and layered and so many different interests that you're just blown away by like what's going to happen to it. But no, I will say I had a great time on that, on Indebted. I had a blast, and I wish every show I'd worked on had gone the distance because you meet so many great people and you have so much fun in those rooms. And then it is so deflating when you're, even as a PA, I felt that way because shows I PA'd on were canceled, and I'm like,
did you know on some of these shows as you're going through it, like, this isn't exactly right. Like I've been on shows where
have you known early?
Oh yeah. Like,
any in particular? I mean, not to.
This isn't. I mean, I mean, lots of shows I've worked on was like, oh, this is not working out at all. The Single Guy was a show that I was working on that I bring up a lot because I worked with the greatest people. Had the greatest time. Had one of the greatest casts. And it was just like there was something tonally that was a mismatch from the shows it was around. From the Friends and I think also the creator showrunner Brad Hall, who's really a smart and funny guy, really wanted it to be more slice of life than big goofy jokes and that kind of stuff. And so it I think the expectation of the audience was not met. And so and when watching it, I was saying to myself, oh, if we could just if we just get it more tonally like the other shows around it, it has it's Seinfeld is before it. It's like it's got to be as goofy as Seinfeld, or at least partially there to get there, and we just couldn't do it. And I don't know why the alphabet. But as it was happening, I was pulling my hair out, saying, "I know we could do."
You're right. And what's the Seinfeld like? The no hugs, no lessons. Like in Seinfeld, like there was going to be no sentimentality in that way, and no sort of and that crowd's not going to stick around for that. And you're right. Like I mean, like the Dana Carvey show, right? Too funny to fail. Like how does that happen when you have that? But I would say the Dana Carvey show wasn't all that fun. Like I watched it. Yeah. There's some really funny ideas, but it didn't work completely as a variety show. It's like, okay, well, really smart people, me included, really good, funny, talented people have made things that are less than perfect all the time. Yeah. And there's a part of it you can't control, because I will say this, that like I was taught that as a short story writer, that the idea, the inspiration, the dedication and diligence to write the story, the construction, right? Like the same as in architecture, like there's a construction to a short story, the rules you can follow, the rules you can break, the narration, all of that. And I can't remember, the professor told me that. And then they said, there's all of that, and that's 80%. And then 20% of it is magic, right? That you can't control because I had breakfast with a buddy who's been around for a while as well, and he was talking about being on Third Rock from the Sun, and that I think they shared offices or were very close to offices from that 70s show, and that the cast of that 70s show had never seen a table read, because they were all new young actors, and so they came over to a Third Rock Third Rock from the Sun to watch a table read happen. And he said the moment they walked in, I was like, this is just the most beautiful people I've ever seen. And not that that's everything, but then you saw their comedic sensibilities and the way those interacted with each other. And even some that were like, you're like, it just meshes in a way that you can't plan. It's just unplannable.
I mean, there is a 6-show grace period where the first 6 shows people are still finding themselves.
Yeah, that's true.
And the actors, especially young actors, are figuring out how to do the thing. Yeah. So they do it. But I mean, I'm sad that you never got a chance to enter the big money world of short story writing. That you stayed, like you didn't break into the bigs. You didn't break into the bigs.
I was going to stick around till like microfiction came back, haikus, all of that. And
have you ever, Fires of Our Choosing?
Yes, thank you.
Have you ever taken any of these short stories and try to make a pilot out of it, or a show out of it?
I haven't. You know what? All of the stuff I've written for the page, I mean, for novels, short stories, they've all been sort of like, they used to call it dirty realism. Like I grew up, I loved, actually my professor, this is a weird callback, but my professor at Pitt, he passed away recently, Chuck Kinder, he was the best. But I don't know if you ever saw the Michael Chabon novel, the famous one that they made the movie.
The Wonder Boys?
Wonder Boys.
Yeah.
Grady Tripp was based on Chuck. And he was that kind of guy. He was the best guy. And he was from West Virginia. He had a million stories. He knew everybody. He had been around. He was best friends with Tobias Wolff and all these really famous writers. Right. And his best friend was Ray Carver. And so we read a lot of that, like alcoholics and pickup trucks and broken marriages and broken homes. Right. And so I kind of studied with that. And I sort of, that became what I wrote. And so when I got to Hollywood, I was like, I want to do comedy because that's what I love. So totally different.
Did part of you think that to be a really good writer, you had to be an alcoholic who's broken with a broken life?
Yeah. You know what? I think, at least when I was coming up, which is a while back now, but I think there is a mythos, like this mythos of like, mythos? I don't know. Jay, help me out here. I don't know either. God damn it.
Listen, just because you're an idiot who went to Pennsylvania universities, don't look to me to try and save your ass.
Mythos. I wish I had a, but I do think that there was, because
mythology. Just say
mythology, but that you would get in those classes as an intro to creative writing, and that's what hooked me, is reading the stuff. Reading Fitzgerald, reading Hemingway. But you do, or at least starting out, you would hear as much about their drinking as you did about their work.
I think that's problematic.
And I
think that we shouldn't know that much about the authors.
Yeah.
And we shouldn't care that much about the authors.
Exactly.
You should just be able to read something and like it in and of itself, knowing nothing about the author.
Because then you get impressionable young 18-year-olds, which I certainly was, and it was like, to write great art, you have to suffer, and to make great writing, you have to drink and be sad and down and be alone, and maybe some of the joy, or hopefully joy and happiness, came from the sort of reversal of that, which was understanding that that's a lie, it's a fabrication. And there's some of the happiest people I know, not all of them, write fiction, you know? Yeah.
I think it is a lie. And I do think that good writing comes from life experience, and some
Yeah.
life experience has
Yeah.
trauma to it, but you don't have to
No.
have been broken by life
Yeah.
in order to be a good writer.
Yeah,
You just have to
totally.
have been observant of your life. And some people's trauma
Yeah.
are small traumas, and some
Yeah.
people's traumas are big traumas.
Exactly.
Yeah,
And I agree. And it's also a little bit of this old misogynistic thing in the literary world where Alice Munro has a great short story where the wife and her husband, and the husband is a writer, and on his book jacket, he puts, he was a bandit, and he was a bartender, and he was a bouncer, and he was a prize fighter, and he was a short order cook, and he was a lumber
Right.
guy. And then the wife in the story is ruminating on that, and she goes, he hated all of those jobs, but he also graded high school, bubble exams,
Right.
like the SATs.
Right.
He loved that job. Why didn't that make the jacket?
Right.
Because it doesn't fit with the myth.
Sure.
It doesn't fit with the portrayal of who you are. And I don't know. I'm kind of over all that. I think it's like, be a good person. I don't know.
Hollywood has its own mythos.
Yeah.
And there are bubbles to be burst here as well.
Yeah.
I mean, many of them. Amongst them is I campaign against the singular genius who
Yeah.
does everything by
Agree.
themselves.
Yeah.
It's like, whoa.
Yeah.
You made a movie by yourself?
Yeah.
You're an auteur?
Yeah.
Like, that doesn't happen.
No.
You have to have 1 million people working on something
Yeah.
and be lucky that everybody came together.
Yeah.
And you can be a leader.
Yeah.
Not saying that, but lots of people work on stuff.
Yeah.
And
did you hear it during the strike? Because I heard it during the strike with us when we were on strike, and like family or people I knew would say, well, why do you need all those writers? Taylor Sheridan writes Yellowstone all on his own. And I was like, well, I've never been in that room. I don't know how it works, or it's not a room. It's just him on his own. But the fact that one project out of hundreds is written by one person as opposed to a writer's room doesn't negate the model of the room.
Right,
It's
and Taylor
weird.
Sheridan does have writers, a staff of people eventually writing stuff.
Yeah.
He writes the pilot and some other things, and then other people do. And maybe he does it all alone, sitting alone. That's fine.
Yeah.
But most shows don't work that way, and they're not better for doing it that way.
No, exactly.
The artist's voice coming through, a singular voice coming through is important.
Yeah.
But people can do that in a group
Totally.
setting, and the showrunner or whoever the person is, if she has a strong voice, she can make that voice there, present.
Yeah. Just make it and that's the other thing is like you get out here and you're so scared about who you're going to work with, who you're going to meet, because you've heard the horror stories, right? About the showrunners and stuff. And then you meet, like I was so fortunate to work with Dan Levy, so funny, so kind, generous. I was an assistant to Al Madrigal very early on, amazing guy, a family man. I'm like, this is what I want. I want to be in this business, but also a family man. Yeah. And then on the last show I was on Gabriel Iglesias, Fluffy, the comic, very funny. And I remember we were on set, and Kevin Hench, who I'd worked with, one of the co-EPs, he had worked with him on Mr. Iglesias. And he goes, come meet Fluffy, and so we're talking. And he goes, tell him your philosophy. And he goes, work hard, be nice. Work hard, be nice. And I'm like, I love the deep conversations, but it's also so refreshing to me when it's like, it's that easy.
Yeah.
Work hard, be nice.
And that's Kevin's philosophy too?
And that's Kevin's as well. Kevin then punched him, and then it was nice to hear it from somebody who can sell out Dodger Stadium, right?
Yes,
like this is a guy who's stand up. Yeah. He can sell out Dodger Stadium, and he's like, no, he's like, everybody work hard, be nice. And I was like, that's
great.
That's pretty straightforward, right?
Yeah. Does he work hard?
No, no, he worked very hard, very hard.
Because you can be nice and not work hard.
Yeah, that's true. If you got to pick one.
If I'm going to choose, be nice and work not hard is also pretty good.
Yeah.
Be nice, go out to a good lunch. That's another good philosophy.
Always a good lunch, right? Always a good lunch. Yeah, that changes the day.
That's important. What was the toughest experience in your transition to coming to work as a writer here?
Wow. You know what?
From college professor to writer.
Yeah. Wow, that's a good question. I think my
job's done. I asked you a question. I don't even care about the answer.
This is it. This is the toughest.
I did it.
I've been here 7 years.
Relax while you try to answer that. I asked a good question.
It's a good question. You don't have to go. I've been here 7 years. This might be the toughest part of the transition, that question.
Exactly.
No, I think everybody, you hear this, right? But I don't know, because I love hearing from writers who have worked in it a long time about how they got started, what their stories were. Because for me, the most frustrating part was that there was no clear line. Like if you want to be an accountant, you go to school for it. You want to be a lawyer, you go to school for it. You want to be a TV writer, it's just like you might as well say I want to be a marine biologist. I don't know. But
if you were a better writer, you'd have a better example.
I'd have a better example. If I was employable, marine biologist is not what I would have gone with. No. But no, you get out here, and then what I kept hearing was, well, you have to because I don't know if there was a pipeline before, or you just got discovered, or you just wrote and sent stuff out there. But what I heard is you have to brand yourself. You have to brand yourself. And I said, brand myself. First of all, I'm not somebody who.
Listen, let me just put that rumor to rest.
Yes.
Branding yourself is such bullshit.
Thank
I can
you.
say that right here. And don't be alone with Jake Hogan. People don't bother branding yourself.
Don't. I ordered that shirt.
Don't be alone with Jake Hogan. We feel firmly that branding is for assholes.
It's assholes.
It's for
Like
assholes.
somebody would have a logo. It's bullshit.
I do think that the time has come where people do have to brand themselves. It wasn't when I started.
No.
But they do. I think they do.
My first, I was lucky. I got into the National Hispanic Media Coalition. They do a TV program. I came out.
I didn't get into that.
You did not. You were on the short list, but then Cogentines was not. We did some digging. But no, it just felt like I got out here and we spent a lot of time talking about that. Like, what makes you different? What sets you apart? What's interesting about you? And I mean, I don't feel very interesting a lot of the time. I love sitting there and punching jokes. I love writing alts. Right. Saying that to a showrunner who's going to talk to 500 people who that's all they want to do and they're really good at it. That's not going to get you the job, right? So it's like, I leaned into this.
Might get you the job. Because if you're in the room, he read something, or she read something you liked.
That's true.
And she thinks, this guy's a good writer. Then, look how hard he wants to work.
Yeah.
That's helpful.
Helps. Yeah. And that knowing that those samples still matter. Because I was, I had finished, we were living in New York. I'd finished teaching. I think I was teaching at 3 different schools as an adjunct. I was tutoring at Columbia, school social work. And it was my wife who said, you love comedy, you love TV. You always talk about doing it. Why don't you give it a shot? Right. And I locked myself in the apartment. And in like 2 weeks, I wrote really bad pilot and a really probably not great spec script of Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt and sent him out. And that was what got me into the program. But yeah, this idea, that was tough for me of like, how do you sell yourself to reps? How do you sell yourself to showrunners? And then the first job.
So how did you sell yourself?
I told them all I was Jake Hogan. And they bought it hook, line, and sinker. And then I showed your credits. And I leaned into the college professor thing. I was a college professor for 10 years. I taught English. I leaned in a little bit to like the fact that I'd published short stories and that held a little bit of credit at the time, which was, and I think more so in the drama world, because I had seen a couple friends come out who were really way better authors, and they had published novels and short story collections, and they got into drama and worked on The Leftovers and The Bridge and all kinds of shows. And I was so impressed by that. But nobody I knew who had been writing fiction came out and did comedy. And so that was harder for me because I wasn't coming from stand-up. I wasn't coming from improv. I was just coming from being a comedy nerd who happened to have taught English. So that became part of it.
How do you find that the Al Madrigal job or the production assistant job? Or how did that all come about?
It's all like just luck and just shit just falling into place, right? So like I did that first National Hispanic Media program. I met my buddy Chris Ensel. He's great. He was the showrunner's assistant to John and Kat, who did My Name is Earl, John Hoberg, Kat Lickle. And then they had a pilot called Downward Dog, which was set in Pittsburgh for ABC. And I had lived in Pittsburgh. So I was in Erie visiting my mom with my Honda Civic, and we interview via Zoom on a Thursday, and they're like, you lived in Pittsburgh? Well, the show's going to be set in Pittsburgh. And I'm thinking, Jesus, I'm going to have some input here. They're interviewing me for a writer's PA, and they're asking me about what I know about the city. And so in 3 days, I drive to Wichita, then I drive to Salt Lake City, and I end up in LA on Sunday, no place to stay. I got a room at a hotel, go into work first thing at Disney on Monday morning, and I get the coffee order. And you know what? I was happy because there's honor in work, right? I don't care what you do. If you're working, not hard. We've already settled upon that. That's
lazily working. Half-assing it.
Half-assing it. Working hard. There's honor. More honor in that than working hard is for suckers. But also, you're so close to it, right? You're so goddamn close to it.
Also, you're learning. Every day that you spend on a set, you're learning so much. You think, oh my God, the thing I thought was important, I just see now they don't even think about it.
And you meet all those writers. Morgan Murphy is in the room, Daisy Gardner, all these amazing comedy writers who have life experiences and have been in these rooms, and you're right, you hear them putting down the beats, you go in to clean the boards at the end of the day,
Right.
and you see the structure, and it was like I don't know, it was like being in the bullpen at Dodger Stadium wanting to be a pro ball player. I mean, I was a 35-year-old ball boy,
Right.
but at the same time it felt good.
Well, it take guts. I will say that it take guts to sort of switch everything and come on out and come out here. So that's bravery.
Yeah.
You fought a certain amount of fear to get where you're going, and then you've gotten there.
You got
so that's
there.
good.
Trying.
Good.
I'm trying.
Everybody's still trying.
You're trying.
There is no moment when you've done it.
Yes.
You know, so it's just work and work and work and work and work, and
Just keep
eventually you
going.
have a career.
Yeah.
And then at some point they say, stop.
Yes.
We don't want you working anymore.
Yeah.
You're done.
Yeah.
And then, but I'm not ready. It's like, no, you're done.
They do.
And then they pull your card. They pull your card.
That's what I'm worried about.
No, they do.
Yeah.
I
just
mean-
need 23 more years and then pull the card, but I just, it's hard.
Don't
I
get your
hope
23
so.
years. It's fine. It's fine.
Has it changed? I mean, because you've been around and you've seen it. Is it Is it unrecognizable, the rooms? Is it better? Here's my question.
Your best four.
I know. I'm going to do it. Is it better or is it worse? The rooms, the culture?
It's different.
It's different.
It's harder. It's harder for me a little bit just because I'm not I don't think I'm a horrible person, but I love to joke.
Yeah.
And I'm willing to joke about your
Yeah.
father's cancer.
Yes.
And I'm willing to joke about anything.
Yeah.
But we're in a world where
Yeah.
I could easily offend somebody by doing that. And that's and I understand that. That's just different sensibility that has come over time.
Yeah.
And I respect it.
Yeah.
But it's less fun than me just jumping down and making fun of people and doing things, or people making fun of me.
Yeah.
It's fine.
Yeah.
That's a different world. This is we were protecting people's feelings in a better way, and that's fine. And so that's the difference. Also, I do think there's something, even though it was corporate before, it's feeling more and more corporate, that corporations are running things, that decisions are being made on a much more macroeconomic level, and it's like, well, that's not how you should judge my sitcom. On a macroeconomic level, it should be the funny or it's not funny, or you think people are going to like it.
Yeah, and the microeconomics of it.
There's no magic formula to know what's going to be popular.
No.
You're just going to have to put it on and risk it and see. So I don't know. So it's different and it's changed, but I do think it's harder for younger people coming up. I think it was harder for you probably than it was for me. Yeah. And
I think it's always, you're right. It's different, but it does feel like it's just, if it's any consolation, you only offended me once. Only once.
All right.
And I'll tell you what it was.
Yeah, please.
Deeply.
Yeah.
We were talking about in college, different bits you used to pull.
Right.
And you said that you sometimes would grow a mustache here on your face. That scarred me. That scarred me, and I've never forgotten it.
Listeners.
Was it right?
The listeners, I grew a mustache on my cheek, but like on my cheek, not across my lip, on the side of my face. But I trimmed it like it was a perfectly made mustache, so that people would think that maybe there was a fake mustache on the side of my face. I don't know why I thought that'd be good.
I was both horrified and fell in love with it instantly because I could not get the image out of my mind.
I can't tell you the amount of dates I got out of that. The ladies loved it.
The lady loved your cheek stash?
When I was in college, I was crushing so much pussy. I'll tell you that. I was wearing like a Raiders of the Lost Ark hat.
Yes.
And a mustache on the side of my face.
Girls.
And I may have had some sort of tweed jacket. Like could have if I wore a neon sign that says "Please do not fuck me," it couldn't have worked better.
I've been there. Yeah. I've been there.
I grew up. I grew up and I grew a little bit out of that, but
I love that bit though. I love that bit, and that is, you're right. It's, you got to be able to. There has to be some sort of leeway to be funny and to make mistakes. I mean, it happens,
Yes, and we do. We are making mistakes, and we will continue to make mistakes. But you just try.
Yes.
You just try,
Yes.
and I respect that, and that you're continuing to try and you're succeeding.
Thank
You've been on
you.
many shows.
Trying.
And you'll be on many shows.
Oh, I hope so.
It'll be
It's
great.
the best job in the world. It's the best job in the world.
It is. I think TV comedy will still exist, and there's still a place for comedy always, and I don't know exactly what it's going to look like in 5 years or 10 years from now, but there's a place for us.
Yeah, there's a place for there's a place, right? Yes, no, I agree. I do, and it's just that people need to laugh, and you need to laugh at stuff that's tough, and that's, I mean, so I'm working with Robin now, where my mom was diagnosed with Alzheimer's. There's jokes right there, and that's what we're writing a sitcom about. How do you make that funny? But you know what?
I'll show you my Alzheimer's sitcom.
You should show it to me.
I did one.
Do you do
yes,
one?
I did one. Yeah.
Why did I waste my time writing one? I could have just yes.
Read mine.
That's it.
Yeah. No. Dementia and Alzheimer's is tough.
It's tough, and so you have to make right because otherwise, all my favorite. I always say this. I was like, the first alcoholic I ever knew was Sam Malone, right?
Yeah.
From Cheers. And I'm like, that's the guy owned a bar. And you know what? It was refreshing for a lot of people who had that problem. Yeah. And that show was a massive success. And it's still on. Anytime it's on, I watch it and it kills me. And it's the reason I know that the robots can't replace us because those jokes are so sharp. And that's it. So
yeah, I agree. All right. Well, let me go on to, we do a viewer mail segment of the show.
Now it's time for Listener Mail.
And this is from Mike. And Mike says, have people in general become more or less happy over the last 100 years as science and technology has managed to make incredible progress over this period of time?
That's for me?
That's for you.
I got to tell you, I think, and I don't know because I'm still on Facebook and I don't think that's a thing kids are into anymore.
Right.
Like Instagram and TikTok and all that. I think that I do believe the people that are like social media, a lot of it has made people, especially for younger people, has made them less happy in a way. And I sense a little bit of that. I think it's measuring your life against other people's lives has always been a precarious thing. And now it's so readily available. Like somebody tells you, be at this address. And how many times, I don't do this because I'm a well-sculpted human being. No, but how many times do you put that address into Zillow to see how much their house costs before you drive over?
Right.
Or you know what I mean? Like just there's so much information.
I don't believe Zillow.
Yeah,
I don't believe the numbers. I also know for a fact when you type in celebrities' income or net worth, it's always wrong.
Is it always wrong?
It's always wrong.
But everybody wants to know.
You might cut it at least by half.
Yeah,
if not by more than half. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's true too, right? With like this, like my wife watches The Housewives, so I'll sit and watch The Housewives. Okay, I love The Housewives, but part of it is these people are living these lives, and you think, oh my God, how did they make all this money? And then you realize it's a fabrication. But then part of it is like, it doesn't matter. It's already in your psyche.
None of the Beverly Hills housewives live in Beverly Hills. Like they're all. It seems like they're like they cut to a house in Tarzana.
Yeah.
And it's like, Beverly Hills housewives. Like, you know. Tarzana's a nice neighborhood. It's not nothing wrong with Tarzana, but it's not Beverly Hills.
Not Beverly Hills. Yeah. And they don't all seem as happy. And you know, it's just, I mean, I guess they're not happy on that show, but it's a lot of measuring yourself against other people, what they have, what they do with their spare time, what their family life is like. And it's truly not that, right? Like all of us know that it's mess and it's chaos and it's, you know. Yeah,
the modern life has a lot of us keeping up with the Joneses, but the Joneses are fictional people in our computers. 100%. And 100%. And it's a big problem.
Yeah, and you're just constantly reminded of it at every turn. And for me, because that is a lot of reality television, but it's social media, but it's also, so I don't know. I just feel like maybe generally speaking, I don't know, happier. I don't know. I mean, 100 years ago, we still have to kill our own chickens for I don't know.
Not in 1923.
Not in 1923, right?
There was restaurants in 1923.
Okay, so so I mean,
some people were killing chickens. People still kill chickens.
So that's my answer. I'd say everybody's happier today, except for the people that were killing the chickens in 1923.
Okay.
Those are the ones who would prefer it now.
Well, Baby Gene, as we like to call you on that show that we worked on together. It was so great to have you. I want to recommend to everybody this book that I've not read yet, but I'm gonna start reading. Miss Me Forever by Eugene Cross.
It's the best. It's a best erotica you can write now.
I masturbated just from the cover.
So it's a stocking stuffer, really, literally a stocking stuffer.
It's how many pages?
Probably too long, but only about like 200.
200 pages. That's 200 orgasms right there. That's our guarantee to you.
What a holiday.
Yeah, come on. Fantastic. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me, Jay.
I wanted to thank the audience, or that audience.
Thank you.
For being here too. Thanks for joining us. And Don't Be Alone with Jay Kogan. If you have a suggestion or a comment or a question that you want to ask me or my guests, and I can get it to Gene even after he's gone, I can have him back and answer it, please write to dbawjk@gmail.com. That's Don't Be Alone with Jay Kogan @gmail.com. And I look forward to having you back with me, with my next guest, who will be way less happy than Eugene Garcia-Cross. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Right,
so much fun.
Don't be